Elon Musk's xAI.
Yeah, speaking of huge clusters.
Yep, they brought on what will be the world's largest supercluster. I think it's will be, not currently,
Okay.
but that's a little unclear. They, it's a completely the cluster is completely outfitted with liquid cooled H100s. It's like extremely expensive. I don't know if we have any idea of the cost. And then sort of the end state is planned by the end of the year, and it'll have like around 100,000 of these H100s, which is just kind of mind boggling.
I mean, how real do we think the biggest claim is? Like, is it truly the biggest right now, or is it just biggest that's publicly known? Like, is there? I mean, there's all sorts of rumors that we don't know anything about, but like, do we actually know how big the biggest cluster in China is? I don't know if we know how big the biggest cluster in China is.
I mean, I don't even think we know how big the biggest cluster in Microsoft is, right? So it's
we don't know.
Yeah, I think there are certainly a lot of question marks. They're at least the first ones to publicize plans for such a large.
Right, it's a good headline.
Super cluster, right?
And the goal is for training, right? Like that is they're saying like, hey, we're just going to train like a massive model
for Grok. Yeah.
Okay.
And for everybody, Grok is Twitter's version of ChatGPT, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're not on X, formerly known as Twitter, Grok is their equivalent. And the artist formerly known as Twitter.
Help with like actually running inference models as well. Like you can run all the different like open source models through Grok. Is that correct, or am I totally wrong?
So there's two Groks.
Oh,
there's GROK, which is xAI's Elon's model, and then there's GROQ, which is a company that designs their own silicon that's sort of transformer models first, and that's how they're able to host an inference so fast. Founded by the same guy who I think helped invent TPUs at Google, but I'd have to.
Oh, wow.
Impressive. Okay. And that is, so those are two totally unrelated. Like Grok with a K is X's thing, not Grok with a Q, right?
Yep. Completely unrelated and completely confusing too.
Yeah. Which came first, out of interest? Do you know?
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy came first, but I mean that's where, right? Isn't that where Grok comes from?
That's for sure where Elon got Grok from. Yeah.
But I think I heard about xAI Grok first, but that doesn't mean it came first.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Do you think?
Well, so there's a Grok question there: is how useful do we think Twitter's real-time data set is there? Because that's sort of what this argument comes down to for a lot of the big players: is how good's your data set. So Google having YouTube, massive. I mean, an unbelievable data set. Plus Google search itself, but I'd argue YouTube's even more valuable. Is the real-time nature of Twitter's data? I mean, they've, like any of the information providers, they've started clamping down on how much other models can train off their data, right? Yep. So that's sort of the pitch, right? Is the reason to even use Grok is you get access to real-time news information. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we've seen Twitter is still, or X is still very relevant for real-time news. You got in American politics, right? A U.S. president putting out there, hey, I'm not going to go for the next election. Notice on Twitter as the first place it's posted. So does that claim hold water? Do we think like real-time immediate news is a sufficient competitive edge to make you relevant at a foundation model level?
I mean, I don't know if it's like, yes, data's one part. I also just think like maybe their thing is, can we outscale competitors?
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, I think it's literally just how well did the like scaling laws actually hold up? Right. If you just throw lots more compute, lots more parameters, do you get better intelligence? I think that's probably it. They're just like, we will bankroll this. We will be first. What's the kind of manic intensity Elon likes to run his companies? Let's be like number one to like get to it and try it, and hopefully the risk pays off. I don't necessarily think Twitter has better data than like most other big players. I think if anything, they're like tweets are probably not great for LLM training. Honestly, like
a lot of noise, right? Some signal, a lot of noise.
I love noise. I think for like RAG purposes, it's great, right? You probably get a great signal, and like maybe they have cool things they can do with that. Of like, well, this is trending, and like thus, like maybe I should prioritize this in my results. Maybe they can do awesome things like that. But I think for purposes of actually having a model that could be like agentic or useful, probably way too much noise, and that is it. But useful nonetheless. Like they can probably do something with it, but.
You don't want a model that just says nudes in bio constantly? Like that's is that not what we're going for? Oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think like it's really the scale that matters right now, right? If the claim is they're trying to go for foundation model, right?
Right.
Which
Yeah,
I think,
and I
like,
mean,
from what I
like,
saw,
I don't know if any social media is actually a great place to train a model.
Yeah.
Like, if you have something built into the algorithm that's like some sort of controversial score, and like just being a piece of shit will get you more clicks, like that self selects. So that's a weird pressure on the training data, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah.
and that's to a certain extent true for all of the internet, and without the internet, that's humans do that too. But this seems like a version of it where it's turned up to 11.
I kind of do want to see Grok that is like that though. Like, I don't know if they make a
sassy
point
Grok.
that is
like base Grok,
or like very like just going for emotive stuff. Like, I wonder if it just like insults the user and that gets you to like use it more, so you get more data. Like, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, that is kind of part of their thing.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've noticed that.
Oh like, attitude's definitely part of it.
It has an attitude.
But I don't know if that's because of like Elon being quirky, haha. Like,
no, it is.
Like, I don't know if but I think I do wonder if it actually was trained on data. It's like, hey, like this makes the most emotive sense, like on like a user basis, right? Like some people really want to be like, on Twitter, there's like lots of builders, and maybe it's like, yeah, you just need to like grind harder, and you're like, wow, like thank you, like Grok, I will like grind harder. I don't know if it takes that kind of stance as opposed to being very like, let's like take a step back, let's think about things, which I feel like is a lot of other models from like other top companies. So
I mean, that's a good meta question. Like, people are saying that Claude, I think, is more philosophic, right? They like how a little more poetic or philosophic it is. OpenAI is very buttoned up, right? It feels like you're in a boardroom. A lot of times it's very, well, according to these sources, here's what we can say. And Grok is a little bit more like, you're having 5, 6, 7 beers with somebody at a bar. And that's probably some Adderall thrown in there. You're like, it's definitely like a very in-your-face model.
Gemini is exactly what you would expect out of Google. I don't know if you've noticed how many emojis it uses.
Gemini's trying to be hip.
I would love to see what percent of the training data, training tokens were emojis. Like, seriously.
I don't know if they put that in as like a later prompt, because I would assume they use like lots of Google data, and that probably doesn't have a lot of emojis. But who knows? What else are they trained from? Like YouTube? Do YouTube comments have lots of emojis?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it could
lots
be
of colorful
like
language in YouTube.
I think a lot of these personality things come from post training, right? Because it's like, I think we might be over indexing a little bit on like, oh, maybe Twitter inherits the tweets, and then Google inherits the YouTube videos. Well, really, it's like everybody's using the whole internet where possible, and then these small models are like synthetic data that was from a model that was trained on the whole internet or something like that, right? And so, it seems to be like post training, and they've decided what they want the vibe of their model to be.
Oddly, X is in a weird position if you thought that. So, like, one of the proposed futures in AI is that people will have a personal AI, right? They'll be like Dylan bot and Jacob bot. And
when you say personal AI, do you mean the AI is your personal assistant, or it is?
No, I actually mean like at your front door. Like, so if someone's reaching out to someone of note, so say you're going to go message Mark Andreessen, right? You'll probably get Mark Andreessen bot first. And oddly, X is in a better position than anybody else to make famous person bot. Maybe Instagram would be the other competitor there. And so maybe that's their angle, is that you train your bot on like, well, we know what articles you share, we know what you like, we know what you follow. So if you want to train your own personal bot that acts as your like glorified, like awesome executive, not even executive assistant, it's your, if I can query you about a question you've already answered before, I can get an immediate answer for free. And it sort of acts as a filter, right? So for the value for like a Mark Andreessen would be, he gets 1 million questions a day, and 5 of those actually signal that maybe this person's worth talking to. So maybe that's what they do. They offer a different sort of product where you can make your own personal avatar that is the way people reach out to you by default.
I mean, I'd be interested to see how like Meta's experiment with that went. Do you remember how they had?
Yeah, they're doing it, right? Are they still doing that?
Yeah.
The like,
I don't know.
Wait, you've never had Snoop Dogg as your dungeon master?
Dude, the dungeon master. What was that? Like, I remember seeing, I'm like, that's Snoop Doggy Dog, and I clicked on it. It's like dungeon master. It was very on the rails.
There's an ogre, and it's like, what?
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. So I don't know if that was like part of the thing to see like do personal bots work. It is interesting to think like what really happens with like Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, WhatsApp. If they really took all that data, which is kind of probably low-key illegal in the States, but if they somehow combined all that data, what would they get? In terms of like learning about.
You can have a user opt-in, right? You could say I opt into letting my avatar get built. We should definitely do a podcast episode of Snoop Dogg DMing a dungeon for us.
Yeah, exactly. We can put it through
Yeah.
its paces.
Yeah.